So the coax cable is what sends the sound from the surround sound receiver down to the subwoofer.
And so it would only be for the subwoofer as long as like audio goes? Normals.
Like, could you use a
so
Cat 5 for a subwoofer?
No, so normally the subwoofer plugs into actually videotape this.
I am.
Oh, okay. So normally you want to place a subwoofer based on a couple of things. First of all, a typical subwoofer has a little amp built into the subwoofer. There are some that don't, but those are rare or more rare. The subwoofer has an amp built into it that powers it, so you need an electrical outlet nearby. So this is a great location for a subwoofer for that reason, because you can plug the subwoofer into this to get the power. And then this coaxial cable that they've run is going to take the sound from the surround sound processor and send the audio signal down into the subwoofer so it can play the bass. Now, they also ran a 16 gauge 4-conductor wire. The reason for that is if you had an in-wall subwoofer, sometimes the amplifier will sit up in the rack and you're actually sending power down to that sub.
So, talking about subwoofer, like conceptually, is it like a 2 speakers, and what is it? Like, what is a subwoofer?
So in a surround sound setup, you have a center channel, which is the dialogue. That's where people's voices come out.
Okay.
You have a pair of front, left, and right speakers. That produces about 90% of the sound. You have rear speakers, a pair of those that produces sort of the effects of like the dinosaur chewing on your head or the glass breaking or the bullet shell bouncing on the ground. And then you have a subwoofer, which produces the low frequency sound. So when there's a big explosion, it goes boom, or when the Batmobile
So
crashes
it's
to
a
the wall.
separate component, basically.
Yes.
Can you consider it a separate speaker, or
It is.
no?
It is. It's its
But
own.
so that's
And it's
what-
typically the biggest.
speaker.
But so that way, how it's still 5-channel, because it would be like
5.1. And the reason they call it 0.1 is
Is
because
that-
it doesn't produce the full frequency range. It only produces about 10% of the frequency range. So when you have a 5.1, you have the center, the front left and right, the rear left and right, that's the 5. And then the 0.1 is the subwoofer that's just producing bass.
Is there any setup where you won't have a subwoofer in that setting, or not?
Yeah, actually a lot of times, and that brings us to the second thing, is you want to position a subwoofer based on where it can plug into the wall and you have wires, but you also want to position a subwoofer where it's not ugly and in the way. And a lot of times people will choose to not have a subwoofer because they say, I don't want to see a big black cube sitting in the corner of my living room. Other people say, I don't care what it looks like, I want it to sound good. Other people will say, I'm going to pay 10 times as much for you to take a subwoofer and build it into the wall. Now, here's where this becomes important is this stud may not be deep enough to install an in-wall subwoofer. If you look at this stud depth right here, and then you compare it to the stud depth here, this stud depth, I don't know if you can see visually, is a few inches shorter. So an in-wall subwoofer would fit in this stud depth just fine, but it's not going to fit in this stud depth because it's too shallow. So they said, okay, let's do a traditional on-the-floor subwoofer. Now, you can also get into Dolby Atmos. You can have multiple subwoofers. You can have 2, you can have 4. In theory, you have
So
as many
that's
as you wanted.
point something something. This
Yes.
shows how many. So it could be 7.2.
Exactly. 7.2 is
Okay.
7 speakers and 2
two
subwoofers,
Gotcha.
which are also technically speakers, but they're bass drivers.
Okay. Okay. I will run, but